President Trump calls his tax overhaul, in his own words, an historic victory for our people. Keeping them honest, the question is, which people is that exactly? John Berman here in for Anderson. Clearly the bill, which the president will sign next month, is a political victory for him and his party. And the simple fact he got it done at all fulfills, in a broad sense, a campaign promise, namely to make major changes on taxes. He did. So for him, it's a win, and yes, it is historic, putting him, for better or worse, in the company of tax-cutting presidents like George W. Bush and Ronald Reagan. As for who the other winners are and how that compares with who he promised the winners would be, namely middle-class Americans looking for lower rates and a simpler system, the picture looks more nuanced, and certain remarks by the president today suggest that he's okay with that. As you know from the campaign through the year, in fact, right up until the measure passed, everyone from the president on down sold the bill first and foremost as a boon for the middle class.
The focus is on middle class tax relief. The focus is on directing that tax relief to the people in the middle and the people who are trying to get there. And that is why we put our emphasis on that tax relief for those people who are in the middle.
House Speaker Paul Ryan back in November, and here's President Trump over the weekend.
This is going to be one of the great gifts to the middle-income people of this country that they've ever gotten for Christmas.
Now, keeping them honest, though, the biggest thing we learned today from the president himself, that for him, the biggest factor, and those are his words, wasn't really the middle class after all.
Our plan also lowers the tax on American business from 35% all the way down to 21%. That's probably the biggest factor in this plan.
Probably the biggest factor in this plan. Would you know that from listening to his campaign promises and all the statements he and his surrogates have said since then? You can decide that for yourself. Certainly, middle-income Americans do get a tax break, just not nearly as big a tax break or as permanent as the breaks that wealthy Americans get, or businesses. The personal cuts expire. The business rates do not. Those are, after all, the biggest factor. And it's not just rate cuts. In the second presidential debate and throughout the campaign, candidate Trump appealed to middle-class voters by promising to end a tax provision that exclusively benefits the very, very rich, such as himself.
One thing I do is get rid of carried interest. One of the greatest provisions for people like me, to be honest with you. I give up a lot when I run because I knock out the tax code.
So that never happened. He didn't get rid of it. It wasn't in the bill. What is in the bill, though, are provisions that not only benefit certain businesses, but very, very certain businesses, just like the kind that the Trump and Kushner family run. And for the record, he made no secret of the fact that he wanted lower corporate taxes and got them. But it was only today that we learned what a prime motivation it was, the biggest factor, his words. We also learned this.
We didn't want to bring it up. I told people specifically, be quiet with the fake news media because I don't want them talking too much about it, because I didn't know how people would. But now that it's approved, I can say the individual mandate on health care, where you had to pay not to have insurance. Okay, think of that one. You paid not to have insurance. The individual mandate has been repealed.
He claims this as a victory. The question is, was it achieved, if not under false pretenses, then at least by subterfuge? And is that okay with you?